Hey everybody, looks like we're getting settled in. Tony, this is for you. A big shout out to you
Thank you.
for requesting this as part of the office hours. Um, the rest of you, everybody now owes me one. Everybody owes me a subject for office hours. It's like the most we sit around on Mondays at like this coming Monday. We'll sit in a meeting trying to come up with a relevant topic. So it's great, Tony, that you reached out and said, "Hey, what about that?" So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Mike and have him run us through.
All right, I'm gonna turn off the join and leave sound first. And we'll go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk about queuing, and what queuing means in our context is just saving something in a queue to perform it later. Now, in the last couple of versions of FileMaker, there's been some helpful script steps and techniques that we use in order to create queues that make things a lot easier for us. But ultimately, at its core, a queue system in FileMaker is a table to store records of your queue actions. It's a script that usually is probably running on your FileMaker server, just every 15, half hour, 1 hour, or just overnight or something like that. How your timing is entirely up to you and how much you think you're going to do. And then your table needs to contain a timestamp that designates when it's okay to run that action. And then you need to store enough information to be able to perform that action later when you're not connected. So there's a few caveats and things, but basically all we're going to go through today is how to set up a queue system to perform a number of various tasks in our system. So this is incredibly useful because it allows you to do things like push a lot of your legwork off to the server so that it can be done later on. It allows you to do things like schedule alerts to pop up, or schedule text messages, or emails to go out at a later date. So we've used the same system in the past to, say, send out appointment reminders. So somebody schedules an appointment with you, you set a reminder up in your queue that says, next Thursday after 3 o'clock, go ahead and send this reminder alert out. So that's all what queuing is about. So to start off with, I've created just a basic copy of the contacts file for us here to start with. And we're going to create an email queue today. But I'm going to show you that it doesn't have to just be for emails. It can be for whatever you want. So first thing we're going to do is create a queue table. So that's easy enough. We'll just create our queue table here. Now our queue is going to need a number of things. The first thing it's going to need is a timestamp that says run after, or run after timestamp. We're going to need a script name to run. We're going to need a script parameter because we'll probably want to store some data to command our queue action of what to run. We're probably going to want to track what happened when we ran this. So we'll go ahead and type in a script result as well. And really that's at the core all we need to get this started. So now I've got a queue with those things. So the next step is going to be, let's set up a folder here, call this queue system. And the first thing we're going to do is create queue action. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass this some, let's say, a queue object. So one of the things that FileMaker has introduced, in the last, decade or so, or 5 years in this case, has been JSON data to be able to provide parameters. So what we like doing as a best practice is setting up a example of script parameter step right at the beginning of our script. And I'm going to do that here. I'm going to just create a quick $sample variable. And then we're going to use JSON set element here. And we're going to pass this an object, so empty curly braces. And we're going to pass a couple of different things here. So we're going to pass in script name here. Now, I just found this out this week, but you can use spaces in your key names in JSON. You don't have to take out your spaces, although I still like to use them. I still like to use kind of no special characters, no numbers in my names. So the script name we're going to do here is we're going to create another script called send email, and that's going to have email object as its parameter. So that's just a text value we're passing on. We're going to pass in script parameter, and that's going to take some data for this. So we're going to pass on data as its own JSON object. And then we're going to do run after. And then this is just going to be a regular, timestamp. So you could use timestamp, like if you wanted something to run in your queue instantly, you could do get current date in here, and then get current time. But this just has to be a formed timestamp, and we're passing that in as text. So I know I'm kind of skipping over. If you've never done JSON FileMaker before, maybe some of this is unfamiliar to you, what I'm doing. But basically what I'm doing is I'm passing multiple field values as one structured data thing. So I'll show you this a little later on when we implement it in the data viewer, what this comes out as. So that's an example. So in our sample script, I'll just comment that out. And then I have this ready-made to copy and paste anywhere where I need to create a queue item later on. I already have my object formed for that. So our queuing script is, this script is to just create that object. So normally you'll be doing this as like perform script on server or something. So the first thing is to validate parameters. So the first thing we're going to do is get our data, which is just our script parameter, get script parameter. And then we're going to say if is empty JSON get element JSON script name. So this is how we would do validation here. We would do exit script like false, or we would exit script with like an error message, error, script name not provided, something like that. So you would do additional stuff here. You would validate for all of your parameters, script name, the contents of your scripts, that kind of stuff. But for now, this is just going to be a really easy. All we're going to do is we're going to go to our queue layout. We're going to create a new record, and we're going to set our queue fields. So this is going to be JSON get element, JSON run after. JSON is case sensitive, so you have to be careful about that. We've got our script name and we've got our script parameter as well. Script name, script parameter. And then I'm just going to force a commit here just to make sure that I save everything. So that's it. That's all this needs to do. So maybe at the end, exit script with a true result, just so somebody knows that that record was created. But basically, we're storing the name of the script we want to run, what time we want to run it on or after, and then a script parameter of the data that we want to pass. All right, so this is all we need for a simple create queue script. So the next one we're going to have is run queue. And this script will run any unprocessed records that are ready based on timestamp. So this one will be what you set up to run in your server process. And again, this will just be a simple script of entering find mode, no pause. We're going to go to our queue layout. We're going to perform a find for where the script result is empty and where our run after timestamp is less than or equal to get current timestamp. Then we're performing a find. So this finds records where the result is empty, so it hasn't been run yet. And then the queue is just less than or equal to. So this means the run after timestamp means that if I put in today's timestamp and there's a queue item in there from yesterday, that's less than or equal to right now. So that will pull up a found set of records. So you just want to do a little check here. It says if there's no records to run, let's just go ahead, exit the script with a true result. Helps us out. All right. Otherwise, we want to run all records through the queue. All right, so do that. We go to the first record. Not gonna go to record first. We do a loop. Anytime we do a loop, we want to make sure that we exit the loop. So get record number and then equal to get found count. And then we go to the record request page next. And just in case, I always like to put the go to layout here first, just so that you can make sure that you go back to the right layout there. You could also do some sort of protection in here, like protect against found set change. So maybe you go back here, but one of your scripts did something to change your found set of the queue table. So you could say if get found count not equal to found count, exit loop if 1. So this would mean we would set a variable up here with our found count. So this way, every time you come back through the loop, it makes sure that you're in the same found set of records that you were before. You could also detect like position as you're moving through with like get record number, just to make sure you're progressing through record 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Or you could just do this. You could put this find in the loop and then just do the first record and then continue to do the find and exit the loop if there's no found. It's FileMaker, so there's like 5 different ways of doing the same thing, of course. So for here, we want to actually run action from the queue. And then we want to store result of action. So the perform script step now supports by name, which it didn't used to. So when we're performing a script by name, we can just pass in our script name. And when we want to pass in a parameter, we can just pass in our script parameter. We're going to store JSON in that script parameter field, so it's already stored. And that's it. That's all you have to do to run that. You make sure the script name is right. So we want to store the result of that action. So we want to say if get last error not equals 0. This is some sort of what we would call like a hard error. That means that script failed to run. So what we're going to do is we're going to write into our field, into our result field, script result. We're going to put an error message in here. We'll put error. And you could put an error message or something like error, script did not run, error code, and then put like get last error in there. So that allows you to record that. If there is no error, then we can just duplicate this with the script result. Which will give us the result of this script that was being run. So that allows us to store the result of that action that was run. And of course, you could do some more verbose stuff in here. You could say if you could do an else if, and you could check the result of the script for errors. But if you want to do things like send an alert if like your email failed to send or something like that, you want to send an alert to somebody else so they look at it. Normally, I would recommend that doing that inside of the script itself. If you keep this queue as generic as possible, like it is right now, there's no context here. So it doesn't care what script name you pass it. It doesn't care what parameter you pass it. This run queue is just designed to go through your queue records and pass on that information to some other script to run. So if you want to do more verbose error checking, do it inside of whatever script you're running. But this is really all we need here. So this runs our entire queue. And then since we're probably going to run this as an exit or as a script schedule, I'm going to exit script true in here. Now at this point of time, what you can do is go on to your FileMaker server admin console, go under your scripts tab and create a schedule. And you could call this schedule like run queue. You can choose your database. You can choose this run queue script out of your database. And we can say we want to repeat daily and we want to start at, let's say we want to run the queue between 5 a.m. So we'll say between, and we want to cut it off at 11 p.m. So we'll cut it off at 11 p.m. And here's where you set your repetition. So if I want this to run every 15 minutes, I would just put in every 15 minutes in here. And then I'll run every 15 minutes. And that's it. You save the schedule, your queue is now working, and all it is waiting for records at this point in time. So that's all you need to set up in your admin console to kind of like automatically run this every 15 minutes and process your queue for you. And again, that is up to you. But if you run it like every 5 minutes and you're doing a lot of stuff like you're caching data every 5 minutes or something, you want to make sure that like whatever you're running through the queue is going to finish in that amount of time. So just be careful that you're not getting too eager, because you'll start to see like your RAM cache and your CPU cache will start to overflow because you have so many of these queue actions running that it's a detriment to your server. So there's some stuff to think about in terms of performance when you're doing this. All right, so we have our queue to run. We have a script that we can pass data to create our queue. So let's do send email. So let's do a script real quick. Would be like send email object. So this is what we named that script to run. And that's just this name here from the example. So this send email, this will require, it's the same sort of thing where we would have an example email here. And that sample is also going to be JSON data. So I'm going to create an object here, and I'm going to just say like I'm going to put like my email address in there. You might have other stuff in there, but you know, subject, body, all the things you would expect an email to have. So again, we'll create that example here. You'll do the same thing where you'll validate email. And since this is going to run in a queue, you want to validate it if false. So you want to make sure you're exiting out of here with descriptive error messages like error, subject line missing, something like that. So you can do validations and then, of course, sending your actual email. So at this point of time, that's another office hours. You could send email through like the Graph API. You could send email through SendGrid or some other email service, AWS, SES. You could just use the regular like send email script step. But a lot of people, send mail, sorry. We're using this so infrequently now. So you could do send mail with an SMTP setup in here. Of course, if you put something in here like send with email client and then the server is running this, it's just going to skip over that and not do anything. So your methodology of actually doing this, this is an actual action taking place. So you might want to put in here approved, or maybe a better term for it would be confirmed, or queue actions. I'm just going to put queue actions here. So I would maybe organize these all in a folder so you know which actions are set up to run in the queue specifically. But again, your send email script step, you might also be using this in your user interface. So it might not be a queue specific action, but for this demo, I'm going to put it in there. All right. So after all that, then we actually have, we want to go do something, assumably. So right here, we have an email button that's doing nothing. So let's just say we're going to perform a script, and under contacts, I'm going to create a new script. Call this button action, send queue email alert. So we'll attach that to this button here. I'm going to create just a new record, put Marshall in here. So you can, you know, fill this stuff out. I don't know if that email actually goes to him, but we're not actually going to sell or send emails out here. So I've already turned this into a button. So let's say we can do stuff like, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building this object, this sample object. So I'm going to call this email for now. And then we can take things like email addresses, like the first email address there, and type that in there. And then if we really wanted, we could create some sort of interface for subject and body, but right now I'm just going to put in, this is a test email. You might have HTML in here. But yeah, basically building that up. And then what you do from here is we have something to create a queue action, so we can perform script on server. This way I don't have to wait around for it to complete because I know that it's going to go create that record for me. So I'll just say queue action and then queue. Now you notice I don't have a queue variable yet, so let's set that as well. And that comes from this example over here. So this one, I'm going to enable this. I'm going to call this one queue. And we already have script name in here. Script parameter, I'm going to send my email in there. And then timestamp, let's say that I want to get current date, but I want the time to be at the end of the day. So I'm going to say time 17:00. Man, I always forget if that actually returns the timestamp, but easy way to check that, just open up your data viewer, pop it in there. Yep, shows up as 5 o'clock for today. So this button will send everything to go out on or after 5 p.m. on the current day. So if I click this at 6 p.m., it would still schedule it for 5 p.m. an hour ago, but the queue would come over it and it would send it right away. Because again, the queue is designed, even if you run the queue once per day, it's going to pick up everything in the past that it needs to run and run through that queue. So just like that, 3 simple script steps, and we've got an action here. So as always, good idea to debug your work. So I'm going to open up my debugger here, and we're just going to click on that button, and we're going to walk through this. So we're going to set email and queue. Now I'm going to look at my data viewer here. Now we're going to use a function called JSON format elements because this makes it a lot easier to read. Here's my email. You can see it's predictably stored. It got the email address all right. It got the subject line. It's got my HTML in there. And if I look at my queue, you can see that my script parameter now has my email as that's what the script parameter is. So when this gets sent into the queue, it's going to store this JSON object in my field. So, right, so we're going good. So I can't perform script on server because this file's hosted. So let's actually stop this and go back and fix that. So perform script, not run queue, create queue, and we're going to pass that the queue parameter. All right, so debug this again. Okay, so now we're checking for script name. It found script name, so it didn't error out. Now we're going to go to that queue layout, simply create a record, set that timestamp in there, set that script name in there, and set that JSON in there. Now you notice it like actually sets it in there as JSON contents. So here's the JSON data here. Okay. Right, so this has been scheduled to run now, and it's got all the information we need. So when we go and test our run queue, we're going to debug this. It's going to go do a find and not find anything because it's not after 5 p.m. yet. So I don't have anything here, so it's going to exit. That's great. That's what I wanted it to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 1 p.m. instead. And now we're going to debug, run this again. And this time it should find that record, and it does. So it's not going to exit. It's going to find a found count. It's going to do our name or our action here. And you see it launched the right script by name. And I don't actually have it here, but you can see in the script parameter down here at the bottom of the window that all of my JSON was passed to the script as the script parameter, so that I can just grab that. And then, yeah, it's gonna try to launch email and stuff. So notice it didn't have a script result here. So I would want to make sure that I exited with a script message that said something specifically, otherwise it would keep sending this. So that's something that's worth debugging. So I'm going to go in my send email script, and I'm just going to exit, show the message like email sent successfully. And we can put at, and then we can put get current time stamp. Okay, so that way, now that I'm exiting the script, that will that will save the right result. So let's just, I'm going to mark where we left off. So we left off here. So I'm going to run my, I'm going to debug, I'm going to go ahead and save. Then I'm going to play, and play is going to take me to here. It's going to try to open my email again. So let's go here. And now you see I've got my email sent successfully message. It's going to go back in the queue. It's going to exit the loop, exit that script. So that's it. This is all a working queue now. The only thing you have to do, that's it. The only thing you have to do is kind of put your different scripts together. But I mean, for about a half hour's worth of work, obviously I'm working probably pretty fast here, but for a half hour's worth of work, you can get a working queue system that's, you know, ready to go and pretty robust. And then, you know, you can just continue to improve on this. You can put better error checking in, you can put notifications in, you can build reports around this queue table. You could create something that deletes old queue records that are like more than a month old, because you might not need them anymore. You could put in like a selector connector relationship so that like this queue table could be related to records in your system. They're really sky's the limit from here. So yeah, that is building a queue. So now it's time for questions. I haven't been watching nothing in the chat window because I'm so good that there are no questions. All right, who's got questions? Marshall, you've got questions. Right.
I'm more fascinated, believe it or not, by how you code than I am with actually what you're doing, because I have no clue what you're doing. So it's like you're Bob Ross, you're putting together a beautiful painting there. I ran into this YouTube and I can't believe that I was watching it for like an hour of a dude playing online Risk, the game. And I'm wondering if you could get a cult following just watching you work just do what you did.
I want to work through the NDAs that we would need for that.
Everybody has to sign one.
Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah, it's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I'm pretty clear. I mean, it was super straightforward how you got from point A to point B. Let's get the man of the hour here, Tony. What do you think?
I think this is really helpful. I didn't even consider passing through the scripts like you did, Mike. And so I think that really makes that a lot more powerful, where you're just kind of using the queue thing, because I couldn't figure out how to structure that part. So here's a question I do have though. What about, you mentioned a little bit like memory considerations and things like that. As a guy who typically runs my server at 90% memory capacity,
Right.
against your wishes, I'm sure. What are things that you have to watch out for so you don't end up having your queue system kind of shut down your server?
Yeah, so I mean, performance is going to be loosely based on two factors: how frequently you're running the queue to perform actions, and then how much horsepower it takes to run through the queue. So if you're running this script every 5 minutes, but 90% of the time it's not finding any results and just exiting right away after trying to do this simple find, then it's going to have like little to no impact on your performance. Like the structure behind FileMaker Server's implementation of cron jobs, which is like scheduled scripts, is designed to handle things and stack them up. Now, you also have to be careful with your scheduled scripts too, that you know, how many you're running at any given time. So the general rule of thumb is that you don't want to run more than probably 10 concurrent actions of server virtual clients. So to run scripts with perform script on server, or to run scripts as a server scheduled script, FileMaker Server creates a virtual client. It's a robot FileMaker Pro kind of session that actually runs the script for you. So in order to do that, you'll actually see that show up, you know, in your admin console. If you're watching under the clients that are connected, you'll see FMSE show up under there. And in general, you don't want any more than like 10 of those things running at the same time. So if you log into your admin console and you see 25, then you might want to think about what's running too frequently that I should cut out, or better yet, you have a queue system now, so consolidate that stuff all down into one. There's no reason you can't use this as your own scheduled script things, rather than using the FileMaker Server admin console to schedule 30 different scripts to run. You can create records in here. You can create records for the next 3 years to run in this queue system, and then just run one script on your server to run. So, and then in terms of the queue running through and processing records, that is mostly dependent on your system. If it's doing something like just taking the data, you're already passing it and sending an email, you're going to be capable of sending, you know, hundreds of emails, thousands of emails per hour. So there's not really a lot to do there. You're just making like an API request, which takes 3 or 4 seconds. Maybe if you're using like SendGrid and insert from URL, maybe 3 to 5 seconds to send an email. So, so when you implement this, you know, wait a little while for it to really get going, then go hang out on your server's admin console for a while and see what it's doing. Or if you have RDP access, open up your task manager, because the FMSE is also its own sub process. So you'll see how much that's taking up.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if it looks like some folks got the knowledge and ran, so we don't have a ton of questions on here, Mike. But
Oh, I've got 2 more questions if we got them.
oh, geez, Tony, not trying to cut you off. Go.
You got me for the
I don't
whole
want to
hour.
dominate. So what about like, how do you prevent kind of the worst case scenario from happening? So like you said over there, you had this email script, it's going, this is like my worst fear of like, I build this very powerful queue system, and then all of a sudden I have, you know, customers or team members that are like, bro, I got like 3,000 emails from you yesterday. Are any kind of tips of things that you can do to kind of build safeguards into this?
So one thing you could do is in your run queue script, when I came back here and fixed like get result, you could really easily add something like else if get script result, and then wrap this in is empty. So you check for an empty script result, and then you put something in here, script ran, but no info was returned. And you just put a generic message in there, because that means whatever script ran, like it ran because you didn't get an error message here, but at the same point of time, whatever script ran didn't provide you with any other information. So that's an easy way to provide some protection there. If you want to provide, do your own timing. So timing is a thing I think we've talked about before. So you can do something like set variable start time, or just start as the get current timestamp, and you can do like prevent runaway loop if get current timestamp, or let's just do current time actually, minus start is greater than, this is going to be an elapsed number of seconds, I believe. So you would do 60 times like 5 minutes would be like 300. So so yeah, this should be good current time. Five minutes have gone by, force quit loop. And then you just put an exit loop if true in here. And that this prevents your runaway loop from happening. And you can specify this time to match whatever your script is running. But again, that's also a setting in FileMaker Server that that you can set. You know, have it stopped running. And when it goes back to run this queue again, it's just going to go back and find records that haven't been processed. So at the most, yeah, you wouldn't, this would be pretty robust in terms of preventing that from happening. I think maybe somebody chimed. Somebody logged in as me and sent me a message. I don't know who's logged in as me. Maybe I had currently running, so if it takes too long, it doesn't try to run again while it's still running. Yeah, so I think there's a setting in FileMaker Server, but again, you want to stop the script from running so that these things don't overlap. The other thing would be to check again, like right before you run this. So you can check for is empty queue script result. So like only run this if the script result is empty. That way, if somebody if this loop is happening and some other process tampers with the queue record and it sets a result, basically you don't want to run that script twice. So now you can run this in tandem and have that protection. And then that would actually extend all the way down here, kind of. So yeah, I think that should be good for that.
Thank you. That's good. So speaking of tampering with the queue records, could you use this like reverse? Could you have a webhook create something in here and then FileMaker does something with the data, but it not originating?
You just have to create the record, but you just have to pass the same data. The only weird thing about that is from coming out of FileMaker is you're more likely to know your script names if you're in FileMaker, and sometimes with a webhook it can be kind of hard to pass a JSON body for the script parameter. So your webhook is going to have to make sure that when it creates the record through the data API, that it actually writes JSON. So you'll actually have to cast your JSON object of the data you want to pass into a string and pass it through as a string so that it gets stored as a string.
And
So-
that's with raw 64 typically.
No, most programming languages have like a stringify method. So like here's an example of it in JSON. Basically, here the JSON is a class in JavaScript that you can run. So it's like a custom. This is like a set of built-in functions, but there's some JSON you're passing in here. And like you can see in here that it's actually creating this on the fly, you know, string false, Boolean false. And this is actually a very good example of the difference between string and Boolean, because you look down here at the result and this false, that's a string, is quoted. This false is just false. There's no quotes around it. That means it's a Boolean false. But this is text that's returned. So like this is now sanitized and ready to store as a FileMaker text value. And when FileMaker picks this back up, you know, all the double quotes and everything are in here. So it's FileMaker will cast it into JSON. It doesn't need to cast it into JSON because FileMaker stores JSON as text. So it's not as complicated as you don't have to cast between different formats in FileMaker, because FileMaker is very good at identifying that the text you have in your variable is JSON. So
That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for all of it.
and every programming language has its own different version of this. This is JavaScript, so PHP has its own way of casting between like a PHP array to a JSON array and then back to a string. And yeah, Python has its own way. Yeah. All right. So I'll go ahead and give this file over to Marshall too, so that it can be distributed as a sample file maybe. Yeah, but I guess that's it, unless we have more questions.
Dig it. Tony, I've got a special gift for you, and Jake, I don't think that we've met, but I would offer this to you as well. Our training partner is putting together a prep for certification class on December 7th, December 9th. He, I don't know if you know this guy or not. His name's Matt Navarre. He worked with, I think his company was called App Data or something like that. Well, he only wants to do training now. So he's rolled up his training. We're subbing to him for, you know, the bigger stuff, not FileMaker 101. So he's working on a 2-day, 3-hour a day, December 7th and 9th, and I can send you more information in the link if you're interested, for certification prep. It's totally free. The reason he's doing it is he wants to kind of do it once, figure it out. So you probably, the only cost to you would be your feedback. You know, this was good, this was bad, like this, didn't like that kind of thing. But if you're interested at all, I could certainly send you the information. He wants to treat it more like a meetup than a training. And I asked him if I could throw our clients in there, and he said, absolutely, let it rip. So
Just make sure you warn him, have Mike warn him ahead of time about working with me. It might not be worth your time.
Yeah, I don't know, Tony, you're probably more advanced than the training that Matt Navarre is offering.
You're
You
so
know, every time I watch this, I'm like, man, people are so much smarter than me. So this is just cool.
Yeah, and then Jake, I think I've worked with Jake before for some mentoring stuff. So
okay. Well, yeah, I don't want to open it to our entire customer list, because he would have, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people potentially in the thing, and I think he wants to keep it a bit cozy.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would love to see it at least or get more information.
Okay.
Thank you,
Well, let
Marshall.
me wrap this. Let me give you more of an individual email than a blast. Jake, are you interested as well, or no?
He said he's interested in certification prep, so I'm
Okay.
not sure if Matt's covering that, or he should, because we need more certification prep.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, cool. Well, yeah. So Mike, if you don't have any closing thoughts, I think we're done, and I declare this the best office hours ever.
No, you have to.
This was
We have
great.
to do. We have
Thank
to
you.
do the one cool fact of the day, right?
Oh, give us the one cool thing.
The one cool thing, and our dev team already knows this because I posted it, but with the new Claris Studio, you can drop in a Claris Studio page into a web viewer in your FileMaker system, and if you're signed in with your FileMaker Cloud ID, you don't have to re-authenticate through the web viewer to see the Claris Studio page. So you can use Claris Studio to set up a dashboard that you drop into your FileMaker system, but it kind of requires that you have, Claris Studio and that you're also hosting in FileMaker Cloud. So hopefully they got everything connected together so that works with external authentication too, because that would be really valuable for Studio to do that. But yeah, that's the tip of the day is
Awesome.
yeah.
And is Studio still a closed or like by invite only for the?
It's not by invite
viewers?
only. You can go get it now. It's like the unified platform, but it's only being sold as a complete bundle, I believe. But I know your setup, so I can talk to Maria about that and see if it's like it won't be useful for like you don't use Claris Connect anymore, so it won't be useful for that. But yeah. Also you use Better Forms, so it probably won't be super useful.
Cause some trouble.
Yeah. You can put Better Forms pages into your web viewers as well and load them if you want. So, but yeah, if you're interested in finding out more about that, Claris has it on their YouTube channel, like all the tours about what Claris Studio does, everything. So they're releasing 1 or 2 videos a week now about it.
Awesome.
Right.
One cool thing. All right. Keep the ideas coming, Tony. We'll turn this into your exclusive 101 training.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next month.